Hello, everybody. Today, I wanted to address the topic about capitalism, but not just broadly capitalism, specifically two breeds of capitalism. One is keeping up with the Joneses, and the second is about entrepreneurship. By the end of this video, you should have a brief understanding of the difference between the two and what it might mean to be an entrepreneur in today's society. So, to get started, let's think about what we know about our neighbors. What happens when we want to keep up with the Joneses? What does it mean to want to keep up with the Joneses? Well, first, we have to recognize that in modern society, we simply know too much about one another's wants. Everything that your neighbor has is something that you want. Everything that you have is something that your neighbor wants. And therefore, we all seek to emulate, to copy, to have what the other people around us have. On the other hand, we have entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship gets bucketed into this a lot because the things that people create are generally copies of other things that are popular in the market. Supply meaning demand and all of that. But when we look at the root of entrepreneurship, we realize that entrepreneurship means to try, to attempt to do something, to have the obsession to create something. This means that keeping up with the Joneses and entrepreneurship operate under two different types of fear. Keeping up with the Joneses is a fear of losing. You don't want to lose to your neighbors. You don't want to be so different from your neighbors. Entrepreneurship, on the other hand, is a fear of not doing. It's a fear of not trying and sticking your neck out there, doing something that you want to do. Both types of capitalism have received a lot of changes during the 20th century. Specifically, thanks to technologies like computing, large-scale surveys, and more. Transportation is a good example. People again now know everything about one another. This is only accelerated in an era of social media where people can see what everybody is up to in a moment's notice. Modern capitalism is a pro then at generating two things, wealth and envy. And they might go hand in hand when you think about it. To have wealth is to cause envy, and envy is the reason for us to want to generate wealth. You can see this in the software engineering field, specifically at big tech companies like the FAANG, Google type companies, where the company will lavish its employees with a ton of perks, as they call it. But the central distinguishing feature of these perks is aestheticization. It's looking like you're working really hard. It's causing envy. It's keeping up with the Joneses for all of the other tech companies that don't have these things. So how does this affect an individual psyche? What happens when a person goes home? Again, as mentioned before, the fear of keeping up with the Joneses is equivalent to the fear of not being able to pay your bills, the fear of being fired, the fear of not having enough money, the fear of starting over. Basically, a fear of change. The only rational thing to do in this situation is to become a slave to your money, a slave to the provider who puts the money on the table to maintain the status of life that you want to live up to. This is a weird amalgamation in our society because we have what we consider individual preferences to be sacred. We take very seriously the notion that individuals should be able to choose for themselves and create for themselves. But have you ever noticed that these preferences are the object of billion-dollar, scientifically informed efforts of manipulation that don't really square with the picture of choosing the self-assumed and the idea of a free market? Have you noticed that there's a tragedy of the commons that happens between the things that you purchase and the things that you think that you want to purchase? This has been known for a long time by both novelists and historians and scientists, that people do not deploy our intellect dispassionately to analyze the world, but instead we rationalize the facts to conform to our emotionally prescribed notions. On the other hand of capitalism, there's the capitalism of entrepreneurship. Capitalism, with all the negatives that I just mentioned about the wealth and the envy generating, has also created a market for the independent mind. It's created a market for people to try something new. You see, capitalism is hard. Getting money requires taking risks, being optimistic, and putting yourself out there. Adversely, keeping money requires the opposite. It requires humility and fear that what you've made can be taken away from you just as fast. The definition of an entrepreneur might be then someone who solves people's problems at a profit, or rather, somebody who takes risks to solve people's problems at a profit. This is a different type of capitalism. Again, the focus here isn't to just make money to keep up with somebody else. It's to make something that makes you money. These are two different things, and this nuance is important. In conclusion, if we're going to spend our energy on any form of capitalism, I think the energy to be spent is on the creative risk. It's taking things, staying active well into your later decades, creating things that bring you passion and bring you joy. It's not merely about things that excite you to get out of bed in the morning, but it's hard problems that you know that you can attempt to solve because you have the skill set to do it. However, if we diffuse our energy and keep it focused on the Joneses and what others around us have and the things that we don't have, we won't be able to see the forest for the trees. We'll be stuck in our own minds against everybody else's. Thank you for watching. If you want to see the quotes in this video, you can scroll to the description. I made what you're seeing in this time-lapse video on stream, so you can come check me out at twitch.tv/Bramsies or wherever I'm streaming. And thanks again. Have a good one.